Thank you for joining us today for our Survivorship special topic. My name is Julie Lanford, and I'm the Community Engagement Director at Cancer Services. We're a cancer support nonprofit located in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And each month we cover a different survivorship special topic with experts in various different areas around cancer survivorship and caregiving. So we have these videos posted on our website as well as our YouTube channel and on our podcast called the Triad Cancer Connection. So hopefully you'll find some of our past topics of interest and support to you. Today's special topic is body image and nutrition for your nervous system. So also known as how your nervous system affects your well-being and what you can do about it. Our expert speaker today is Debra Benfield. She is a registered dietitian nutritionist, a certified eating disorder specialist, and a certified yoga teacher. She is the founder of Body and Mind Nutrition, which is a body positive nutrition therapy practice here in Winston-Salem. I've known Debra, I think, almost my entire career, possibly, and she is super great. Wonderful mentor. We've had her come and do programs for our survivors here at Cancer Services, and her information is always good. So if you want to find her regularly, you can find her on Instagram at Aging Body Liberation, and her website has other podcast interviews that she has done and resources. That's debrabenfield.com/media. So welcome, Debra. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
We decided to do this topic because I get Debra's emails and she always sends interesting things to think about. And I find it very relevant, especially for cancer survivors who have gone through, a life-threatening diagnosis that makes you think differently about what is quality of life, what is well-being, and because your body is that changes your relationship to your body when you feel like there's something going on that has to get out. And lots of people have had surgeries. They've had parts of their bodies altered or removed and it functions differently, or they've been forced into menopause, or, so many different things. That body image is a pretty big issue. And here we are in January, which is always a challenging time. It's kind of exciting because you feel like, oh, it's a new start. We can do new things. But then you're surrounded by people who maybe are doing new things that I might term not so healthy, even though they might think they are. So myself and Debra, I think, are on the same page that in January, we're often trying to help people not do damage with their good intentions.
Yes, exactly.
And we know it's complicated. So, and there are things, obviously, especially as people finish treatment and they think about their life going forward, that they want to make changes to or do a reset. Can't reset cancer, unfortunately. That would be nice. But how we cope with cancer and the impact it has on our lives is something we can influence. So the nervous system is something that's very connected to our mental health and well-being. So I thought we could just start kind of with the basics. Debra, can you help us understand what exactly is the nervous system and how does that influence our well-being?
Yeah. When I study about the nervous system and what it's like to regulate our nervous systems, I always feel like I'm reading about astronomy. It feels like huge. It's such a huge topic. And it's also like there's so many new discoveries continuing. We're still learning so much about the connection between our nervous system and our digestion, the gut-brain combination. So many pieces of this puzzle are in the very infant stages of discovery. So it's a large conversation. But overall, your nervous system is kind of like the boss of your body. It's like really regulates your cardiac function, your breathing, your digestion, things that you're not thinking about, and the things that you're thinking about, like moving my hands right now. That's my nervous system telling my muscular system what to do. And sensations that you may have. I have a candle burning, so the aroma in the room is like my sensory piece of the nervous system is picking that up. I just have a little cup of tea, so the sense of taste and smell, so many pieces of what makes you a human being, your memories, your thoughts, your emotions. So I think that covers it. Everything.
Yeah,
Everything
it's
is,
almost as you're like talking with your hands. If anyone's just listening to the audio, just talking with your
yes.
hands. It makes me think of like, because you said the boss, like there's the brain, and then there's like
Yeah.
all these little connections basically from the brain
Mhm.
to the rest of your body. That's kind of
Yes.
all of that. um
Yes.
it makes me
Exactly.
think of like a jellyfish or an octopus or something. So
It's
yeah, and I
big.
know therapists talk a lot about, we say mind body connection, or
Mhm. Mhm.
like a year ago our special topic was around well-being and like different aspects of wellness, and I feel like those all play into this because it's such a
Yes.
complicated system. So
Yes.
today we're kind of focused on body image and nutrition, and Debra and I
Mhm.
are both trained as dietitians, but it's very much like tied in with other aspects of health and well-being that go through, with therapists, or occupational therapy, or physical therapy, or speech therapy, or like kind of all those things that work together. Um,
Right.
so in an article you wrote last year, you talked about how body image affects our nervous system. Can you speak into
Mhm.
that?
Mhm. What we know to be true is that there are certain aspects of our life and our life experience that help the animal of our bodies, our actual bodies, know that we're safe or that we're not safe. And if you feel like your body is marginalized in a culture where we have a very narrow definition of what's ideal, the majority of us have an aspect of us and our appearance that makes us feel more marginalized. And when you feel like you don't belong, when you feel like you're not seen or that you're invisible, as we lose our body's abilities, as we age, as we are not as young in a youth obsessed culture, as our bodies don't fit what is considered to be, some sort of idea that we've learned is good, we don't feel as safe. It can feel subtle. Most of the people that I work with tell me that they actually don't feel as safe in the world when they are appearing to be older or larger, for example. So it's very subtle, but it really does affect how your nervous system is regulating. You may notice that you're holding your breath. You may notice that you're your shoulders are higher, that you are like not experiencing digestion as well. It could be very subtle things that you're starting to experience that you may not notice, but you truly, like, your body doesn't feel as safe if you feel like you don't belong.
And I'm not certain that people would notice like
Right.
their body image. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think they would notice safety or not, like
Mm-hmm.
feeling safe
Mm-hmm.
or not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
related to that. So I'm actually wondering if we should define body image a little bit. Like,
Okay.
is I think a lot of people, it's how they feel about their body is what,
Mm-hmm.
like when they see themselves, or so
Mm-hmm.
what exactly would you say is body image?
I think you're right. I think you've already done a beautiful job. I think it's our idea of if our bodies are okay or not. It's our judgment about our bodies. It's not my favorite term because
Mm,
the term itself actually is inviting us to look at our bodies with judgment. So I many times replace that with body relationship because what
ah,
I long for myself and others is to feel kind about your relationship with your body, wanting to care for your body as your partner instead of like a project you need to be working on.
right.
I hope that helps.
Yes. And when you are talking about like our culture's ideal,
Yes.
um, like you're referring to a thin,
Mm-hmm.
young looking, or
Mm-hmm.
I suppose like
Mm-hmm.
strong or muscular, or
Fit.
that there's kind of one way to look that's
yes,
okay,
yes,
according to the culture, and sometimes reinforced by sort of medical assumptions.
yes,
And of course, like, we've had people whose bodies look very different than they used to, which, so someone could have a positive body image. Maybe it wasn't even an issue for them. They had a positive body relationship. They felt good. They appreciated it, and then felt like, oh, my body let me down. And now I've had these surgeries and and it's hard. Like, I won't look the same as I did before. And that in itself will affect the body relationship. So what can actually be done about that? I guess maybe that's where I'm going.
What can we do about mending our body relationship?
Yes.
Or
Ooh.
I don't know how much time we have. Sorry, I have a tickle in my throat. Ultimately, to mend that, I think we have to notice that we're looking at our bodies with judgment, and that we are participating in this idea that there's a good body and a bad body. And so you have to get to know yourself a little bit. You have to slow down and notice how you're talking to yourself, notice what your thoughts are, and have a little sit down with yourself that's like, is that really true? Or is that just a story that I've learned to tell myself? Because actually it's not true. Who I am, my true value, is not what I look like. You have to do a lot of shifting and perhaps even looking at your true values. If you're really connected to your appearance and you're really affected by external validation, it is going to be a hard road, and you may need some support and some help with that. But if you can have a conversation with yourself that says, okay, who I really am, what is really what I value about myself, what my true relationships are like. I mean, they love me for this and this and this and this, not what I look like. Then you can maybe just remind yourself when you get hard on yourself every now and then. That's a much easier process, but that's not available for everybody. We're all very unique. So it kind of depends on if you are really attached to your appearance and feel like your external validation was a big piece of your life, then this may be a lot harder to extricate. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So a therapist is helpful. I think, especially if this particular discussion is resonating. I think, you've mentioned a couple places to start, which is be aware of how that's tied. And that's how it is. That's a fact. You don't need to, be mad at yourself for it, but also that can be difficult to work through without somebody who can kind of coach you through it.
And all of us inherited all of this anyway. This was learned in early life, and it may have been part of your family's values, and it may have been part of your social group's values. And certainly our current culture is really pushy around appearance. So this is something you learned. It's not actually who you are. It's a learned belief system. Yeah.
So, all right, body image, body relationships, it's all complicated, but I think we've touched it. But I'm curious, what other, in terms of the nervous system, what other nutritional factors, I guess, can negatively impact your nervous system?
Absolutely. I think it's really important, and this does not get talked about nearly enough in my point of view. The brain, the function of the brain, is very calorically expensive. Our brains utilize, 20 to 25% of the calories that we eat every day. It's pretty amazing. People think they have to go do something physical, but actually being anxious, having lots of thoughts, or concentrating is actually using energy. So when you are undernourished, you may or may not notice that you're undernourished, but if you are eating less than your body needs, your brain function is affected more than any other organ system. And the symptoms of that are, we have one really good piece of research data that explains this. And I think this is probably way too much for our conversation today, but we know that when human beings are undernourished, this is what happens. They find it very hard to focus and concentrate. Their focus is very hard. I mean, they can't retain information when they're trying to read, for example. There tend to be obsessive thoughts, lots of obsessive thoughts, especially around food, body, exercise. Maybe even like more recipe hunting, more looking at food. You tend to be more irritable. I mean, the word hangry exists for a reason. People are more edgy. They're not their best selves because you're not accessing executive function. You are much more in that lizard part of your brain where you're reactive and under threat because hunger is a threat. You may be moody. You may be more depressed. You may have more anxiety. You're not sleeping as well. Those kinds of things. It's very clear to us that when a person is undernourished, those experiences are more likely to be your reality. And then when you're nourished, it all goes away. I mean, that's what the research shows, that all of those things go away. So if you're in a situation where you're already tending to feel anxious or depressed, you need to be fed. And sometimes that's really hard because when you're upset, sometimes you lose your appetite. So if that's okay temporarily, but over time, if you stay underfed, it can actually contribute to you not feeling well. And there are particular nutrients. We know that B12 deficiency also affects our nervous system regulation. Omega-3 fatty acids are really helpful when it comes to having a healthy nervous system, having enough fat and carbohydrates. The brain actually uses carbohydrates first. So if you get carb stingy, or if you're on a diet that eliminates carbs, it can make you not think as well and not be as emotionally grounded. So if you're experiencing that, it's not just you. This is like science. It's not your imagination. Yeah.
And like we use undernourishment or malnutrition. So when you're, I guess, at first in cancer treatment, many cancer centers are going through malnutrition screenings that you may or may not even know they're doing. And the dietitians are going to intervene if you hit certain triggers in terms of malnutrition. So that's like in a clinical setting. And then, but no one's checking, once you're kind of just out in the world on your own.
Yep.
Or let's say you don't hit those triggers of malnutrition. You can still be undernourished because a lot of people just aren't that tuned in. And by undernourished, we mean you could be not eating enough calories in general, which is just a unit of energy. So I sometimes say, interchangeably, calories just means energy. We want energy. We need energy. Nobody wants low energy. Okay.
No.
So you need to get enough calories to give you energy. Carbohydrates. Most people, I don't think, we also focus on protein a lot in cancer and clinical world to make sure people have those tools for building lean muscle, and fat, like Debra mentioned. So like those are kind of the key things. And then there's other micronutrients, B12 and those. But I think most people are typically more aware of the calories, the carbs, the fat, the protein kind of situation. And I've always said I'm not a fan of any eating plans that eliminate entire food groups for this exact reason, is that your body needs all these variety of things. And low calorie is not necessarily good or, bad or whatever, but there's a lot of assumptions people have about nutrition that it can be quite harmful because it can result in this undernourishment that is negatively impacting your well-being. So we've kind of talked about that piece, and I think it can be complicated for people. I feel like eating shouldn't be so complicated, but it has been very complicated in our current world. So I do encourage you, if you're watching this, I'm available at Cancer Services. Debra has her practice. There's lots of ways that you might touch base and just, have a conversation about what are you meeting kind of your needs, and paying attention to how you're functioning. Of course, complicated because there's lots of things impacting your life that can influence your well-being, your anxiety, all of those things that may or be nutrition related or not. Who knows, So that's why we talk about this being so holistic. All right, we've covered kind of the negative piece. So I always like to be a little positive. I like to talk to people about what we want you to include in your day and in your life. So help us see on the positive side of things. There's a lot of things we can do to help regulate our nervous systems and enhance our well-being. Like, what are I guess maybe if people are just starting into this, what do you feel like are the most important things?
I think that I want to say it's understandable that you get dysregulated. It's part of being a human being that sometimes we get activated. You get bad news, you hear bad things on the news about the world, you hear sad things from friends. I mean, all of those things, it's very normal to feel dysregulated, for you to feel. And what that feels like is to feel like your heart is beating quickly, or you're breathing really shallow or high, that you feel kind of sweaty. You may get some like nausea. You can even get diarrhea. There are all sorts of things that all of a sudden happen when you get activated or dysregulated. My goal is for you to be able to move through that and not get stuck there, because you can get stuck in a dysregulated state. So the goal is to be able to have a resiliency around finding balance. And the way that you find that balance is to have some practices. And my hunch about everybody is that you already have some of this in your life. You may have naturally found that when you're nervous, that helps you to watch the same show you've already seen. There's something about a familiar television show over and over again that helps you kind of get to a calm place. It's fascinating to me. Perhaps going out into your garden and doing little things or big projects helps you feel calmer. You may already know that taking a bath makes you feel so good. And for me, little things like folding laundry sometimes feels regulating. Like I know it's going to happen there. There are no surprises. It's warm, it feels good to my hands. It could also be just getting outside. It could be like doing your spiritual practice. If you go to a prayer life or anything that feels like you're connecting to something that's bigger than you, calling a friend, slowing down and breathing. For me, my personal practice is to feel my body touching the floor or what space I'm in. So I kind of get out of my head, get into my body as my resource. So feeling my body like in my feet or in my seat, and then taking a deep breath. Breathing is tricky. For some people, taking a breath makes them feel more anxious. So I don't say that that's always true for everybody. And if it does feel like it's activating you to feel like, I don't know how to breathe, and I'm doing air quotes right now because people feel like when they're told to take a deep breath, sometimes that makes it worse because you feel like you can't. So it's okay. That's normal if that doesn't feel accessible to you. But sometimes trying to slow down and breathe is so powerful. And sometimes like reading something that's grounding. It could be a spiritual book. It could be like your favorite reassuring book. There are all sorts of little things. Sometimes journaling, doing things with your hands like knitting. I, again, mentioned my senses, like burning a candle that smells good. All sorts of little things that can help you slow down and kind of regulate yourself.
Awesome. And yeah, I know like for me, I just like I feel off or Sometimes I'm
Yes.
like, I just got to get out of here.
Yes.
And a lot of times, like, take a walk or take the, that's always, my dog is always my excuse. I need to take the dog
Yes.
for a walk.
Yes. And just petting your pet. I mean, you're
Yeah.
hugging. I mean, having physical containers that feel like friendly and remind you that you're okay.
Yeah.
For
Pets, that's a
sure.
good one. I hadn't.
Pets are a great one.
That's
Art, if you do like little projects, we talked about coloring books a few minutes ago before we got on. Any little art project, all of those things that get you a little bit more connected and out of that swirling thought place.
right.
Yeah.
So you had recently in your email, there was a practice you suggested
Yes.
that you could
Yeah.
lead us through. So you mind doing that for us?
Yeah. It was a body gratitude practice. So all of us probably have experimented with gratitude practices. It's such a well-known way to improve the quality of your life and your mental health. So applying gratitude to your body. And some of you may have places on your body specifically that you may want to send your own love and care to. Gratitude for the fact that your body has continued to function and heal. Like any way that you want to articulate, I'm grateful for, thank you for to your body. And then what I wrote about that you're talking about, Julie, was to combine that kind of affirmation in your thought with something that is like in your body. So I talked about using Play-Doh to make like a little pinch bowl or clay. I talked about like folding paper. I talked about like journaling, just kind of letting yourself free flow with the idea of body gratitude in your mind. Having something that's very in your body while you think grateful thoughts about your body can kind of bring it into connection in your body. It allows it to land a little bit more deeply, because we all know that we're wired for that negative conversation, that negative piece. So to kind of leave that alone, let that go, and to bring yourself back to some like positive reassurance and gratitude, specifically about your body, things that you're hard on about your body, the places that you're worried about in your body. It's very powerful.
That's awesome. And we've done like gratitude,
Yes.
programs in the past.
Yes.
And so I think that's a great way to do that combination of all different, variety of different aspects of your well-being together.
Yes.
So thank you for that. And for all this great information. I feel like it's opened this huge, box, but I also feel like it's a great way to start the new year as you're thinking about ways to care for yourself in, 2024. And hopefully, our listeners can join in with either something that's going on through us, we have art classes every month. We have groups that do self-care or other ways to really care for yourself, but also your personal practices at home. So if anybody has questions about this, you can find Debra on Instagram at Aging Body Liberation or Body and Mind Nutrition. Right, I have that right. BodyMindNutrition.com.
Yes.
To kind of get more information about that or reach out to us here at Cancer Services. But as we close out, I always like to ask our experts as we're kind of leaving to share one piece of advice that you'd like to offer the viewers. So Debra, do you have one thing you want to leave us with for today?
I wish I could think of one and not 15 all of a sudden. I have like so many. But I think one good practice is to remind yourself that bodies change. We're not supposed to stay the same. Bodies change, and that's okay. To kind of bring yourself into the fact that it's very normal for your bodies to change with time, with experience, for so many reasons. Our bodies are not supposed to be static. They're supposed to be a flow. So to remind yourself that that's okay.
Bodies change and that's okay.
Exactly.
I like it. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise today, Debra. And that wraps up our topic. As a reminder, you can find all our expert interviews, videos on YouTube or the Cancer Services website, and audios on our podcast, the Triad Cancer Connection. So we thank you all for joining us for this special topic, and be sure to stay updated on our survivor programs by checking our Cancer Services website, email, newsletter, and social media channels. So have a great day, and we hope to see you soon.